How many friends have you made today? Chapter 10, Part 2. It all started as a little payback for what Luna did, but it soon turned into a lively exchange. Everyone at the table had smiles on their faces as they shared stories. Anon could only sit there and feel an odd feeling inside of him as he watched the two sisters talk about a certain story that they shared. Each one gained a laugh from Anon at how over the top some of them were, and for a moment they were no longer princesses. They were simply just two sisters, enjoying the memories of their youth. They ruled no kingdom, they had no responsibilities, and even if it was short-lived, they were truly free. Their donuts came long ago when things started to pick up. They simply ate without much thought and kept talking. However, the sun was long gone by now, and the store probably opened up longer than what was normal. A short pause came from their conversation, and Anon found it right to take advantage of it. Well, ladies, I think we should head on back to the castle. He looks over and spots Blue Blood asleep as he leans against the wall. Yeah, definitely that time it seems. The two sisters look over and see Blue Blood. Celestia chuckles some as she moves the excess mane hanging over Blue Blood's eyes with her hoof.
Yes, I think it is time for us to call it a night.
She looks at Luna.
Do you mind taking Blue to bed, sister?
Luna shakes her head.
I do not mind, sister. Teleport?
Celestia nods.
Teleport.
Luna nods as she covers both Blue and herself in her magic, as they disappear with a brief popping sound. Celestia looks over to the counter where Joe stands patiently. To be honest, Joe is rather proud to have seen his princesses in a different light. Whoever that thing is, it must be very important to both of his rulers. Celestia levitates some bits to the counter where Joe is.
Thank you. There's a little extra for the trouble.
Celestia says in her sweet tone. No need, princess, it was a pleasure. He tries to offer back the bits, but she shakes her head.
I cannot take the bits that you've worked for, but thank you.
She gives him a nod of her head. You're too kind, Joe says as he accepts her bits. Celestia walks back to the table where Anon is sitting and wait.
Care to join me for a walk back to the castle?
Celestia asks, and Anon smiles at her. Well, you seem rather happy, he points out. She doesn't even put her mask back on as she smiles brightly at him.
I am.
Is all she says as she starts her gait towards the door. Anon silently chuckles as he rises from his seat and follows her, stopping briefly at the door as he gives Joe a wave. Celestia and Anon are walking down the main street of Canterlot in the dead of night, a statement that is more literal than not. It seems so different from just a few hours before. At the moment, only a few ponies can be seen here and there as they walk about. Anon looks over at Celestia and notices that she's looking up at the sky.
You know, I never told my sister about how much I loved her sky.
Celestia said in a voice that holds so much pain.
My son does not hold a single candle to the masterpiece that she brings every night. Maybe if I told her, things would have just... They would have never happened like they did.
Anon feels her wing wrap around him as she pulls him close. You alright? Anon asks.
Surprisingly, yes.
She says, looking at him with a smile, even as a thin tear trail runs down her cheek.
Better than ever, actually.
Anon reaches up and clears away her tears. A princess should never cry, Anon says, and she chuckles at him.
I don't feel like a princess right now, Anon.
That gains a small smile from Anon. Well, I guess I'll allow it. Celestia leans her head down to Anon as she nuzzles him gently.
Thank you for this. I haven't had a night like this in a very long time.
No problem. The two of them just continue down the road, enjoying the night sky for all it's worth. Finally, the two of them made it back to the castle. Anon and Celestia stand before the doors to her room. Anon is just about to leave, but hears Celestia call out to him.
Anon, would you please join me?
Celestia asks as she stands at the front of her door. Anon shrugs. Sure. He walks past both guards as Celestia turns to face them.
You two are relieved. I wish to have some privacy.
They both give each other hesitant nods as they give their leader a bow in compliance.
As you wish.
One speaks as they take their leave. Celestia enters into her room and closes the door behind her. She looks over and finds Anon standing in front of the balcony door as he looks outside. Not having opened it, he just stood there, looking past the glass. Celestia walks over to his side.
What are you thinking about?
She asks. Anon is thinking about the meal that they had here, how his emotions deliberately turned on him as the night went on, how he ended up leaving, getting drunk, pretty much everything about that night. Just thinking about how so much has changed in a few days, hours even. He gives a weak chuckle. It just seems so different. Celestia extends her wing and lays it gently onto Anon's back.
Life is full of surprises, Anon. Do you regret what has happened?
She asks. Anon thinks back to a few hours ago, how he listened to the two sisters share their fondest memories. It was at that moment that Anon felt a change inside of him, something that he would have never thought possible before. He shakes his head. I know it's for the best. My mind is telling me that I'll regret this, but... He looks over to her, a faint smile on his lips. I don't think I could have picked better friends to trust my life with. Celestia thought that she would feel happy at this moment, to finally hear Anon admit that he trusts them. Yet, he took it one step further. He actually trusts them with his life? She feels as if her heart is hurting, but in a good way. It was a certain twinge that she wasn't familiar with. It must have been very hard for Anon to admit this to her. He's trying so hard, and that's what matters. She would have easily accepted him as he was before, but now? He seems so much happier. This makes her think. How much does she trust Anon? Now that she thinks about it, she trusts him a great deal. He's one of the only two others that have seen the real Celestia. She hangs on to every word that he says and feels every pain that he's felt. She trusts him, and that much is clear. But does she trust him with her life? She feels her heart ache horribly at that thought. The only pony that she ever trusted was Luna. It hurts her to admit it, but after the nightmare incident, she never allowed herself to trust ponies with her life. Even as Luna came back, she still feels a certain wariness about her. She hates herself for feeling that way, yet she can't deny it. There was even a small voice in the back of her head that kept telling her to keep a close eye on her. And she also has a feeling that Anon had felt this way for a very long time about her ponies, which hurts her all the more. However, here he is now, trusting in not only her, but her sister. The pain in her heart lessens as she remembers this fact. As she looks at Anon now, she honestly does believe that she can trust him with her life. Yet she feels a large sense of guilt. There are many things that she never told Anon. Perhaps now would be the time to show him the real Celestia.
Anon, I trust you as well. More so than even my sister.
She flinches some as she hears this leave her mouth.
Would you care to join me in a more personal talk?
Anon gives her a small nod, showing no reaction to her previous statement. Sure. Celestia lowers her wing and slowly walks over to her bed. Anon watches her with a raised brow as she climbs into bed. Celestia looks at him with a gentle smile, patting the empty spot beside her.
Come. It's getting late and I don't wish to be alone after we talk.
Celestia says with a sad look. Well, you know, a lot more weird things have happened for Anon before. Getting in bed with Celestia is actually rather tame. He walks over to the opposite side and climbs into bed with her. It's because that he trusts her that he shows little to no concern. He lays on his back to get more comfortable. Celestia then cautiously works her way closer towards Anon. If Luna was bold enough to ask him to snuggle, well, Celestia could be just as bold. As she finally gets closer, she gently rests her head onto Anon's chest. She feels her nervousness die away as he rests his left hand beside her. He gently strokes her back in an absent-minded way. Celestia has never been this close to a pony in many, many centuries. She gets comfortable and tries to organize all of her thoughts.
I have been alive for a very long time, Anon.
Celestia starts.
A very long time.
Anon can tell just from her tone that whatever she wants to talk about is deep, so he decides to stay quiet and gently stroke her fur.
These days, we don't see much trouble. A few things from the Everfree come too close to a pony settlement, and a villain or two will try to take over Equestria. I know that may sound bad to some ponies, but not to me. Though they are something I do not take lightly, believe me, yet they are nothing compared to what my sister and I faced before our banishment. There were wars. Countless wars, more bodies than I could ever imagine once laying upon this very land. Ponies don't know it now, but the very ground that they trot is covered in the blood of their ancestors. This place was not always peaceful, Anon. I had a fight, and ponies had to die to get to where they were now. I sent families, young colts even, to their deaths.
Anon feels his shirt slowly becoming wet. He doesn't say a thing about it. Being here is exactly what his friend needs right now.
Believe me when I say that if I had any other choice, I would have taken it. I did what I did to try and make a better tomorrow.
Celestia clenches her eyes shut.
What I'd seen was not even half of what my sister had. Ponies wish to believe that I'm the strongest. My sister, she's on a different level than I am. She has led armies and our name to the battlefront. She fought hoof and hoof with these cults, and she has seen the horrors eye to eye. My sister never enjoyed what we had to do. However, she adapted to it far easier than I could have ever hoped. That's also the reason Pony started to fear her night. She became known as the dark creature that stole lives in the darkness, a being of pure hate and malice. I knew these things were wrong, yet they hurt my sister deeply. She fought for our subjects, and they feared her because of it, even went so far as to shun the very gift that she brought them every night. It wasn't long until things escalated. My sister slowly became jealous of my day, and it started to brew inside of her. I tried to speak to her, tell her everything that they were saying was out of fear. But she didn't listen, and soon became something else entirely.
Celestia uses her wings to pull Inon a little closer.
That day is still buried into my memory. One moment, my sister, little Wona, is standing there. Then, just like a nightmare, another creature stood before me. I had no choice. I knew that I was never as strong as her. She spent more years in combat before her banishment than I have to this very day. I used the elements against her, and they locked her away in the moon.
Anon isn't too sure what to say. Is there even anything to say? He just holds Celestia a little tighter to let her know that he's still there.
I've been alone for so long, Anon.
Celestia says as her tears come through in full force.
My one and only sister was gone. There was nothing I could do to bring her back. After that day, I had promised myself to never let any creature get close to me in such a way.
She slowly tilts her head up to look at Anon.
I am no goddess, Anon. I, too, have weaknesses. As the years went on, I felt that promise weaken as my heart started to ache. But then, I found Twilight. A small hope that never came to be. I told you that story before.
She says with a sad chuckle as she goes back to her position on his chest.
What were the odds that you would appear in our world? What were the chances that we would meet? What were the actions that made us friends? It all seems so perfect. Yet at the same time, not.
There's a long silence that built between them, as no one said a single thing.
Anon, you said that you trusted me with your life, right?
Celestia continues. I did, he says with that hesitation.
I haven't trusted another pony with my life. The only exception was Luna before her banishment. It hurts to admit this, but a small part of me is still afraid of her, wondering if she may turn on me once again if I were to open myself to her. I just hate that feeling so much.
She then quickly sets up so that she can properly face Anon.
Anon, what you did today means more to me than you will ever know. As we sat there and talked about the good times that we shared, I slowly realized that I have no reason to fear her. That mare at the table was my sister, little Wona, not Nightmare Moon. That small voice that whispered into my mind is gone, and I only have you to thank for that. I no longer need to fear my own flesh and blood.
Celestia chuckles as she nuzzles him gently.
Thank you for everything.
She pulls back to face him.
I trust you, Anon, with my life and so much more.
Celestia is leaning over Anon some as she looks down at him. However, she can't really tell what's going on in his head right now. He seems to be processing what she had just said. Anon slowly gives her a small smile as he extends his hand to her. Celestia raises a brow, unsure of what he's doing. My name's Anonymous. Nice to meet you, he says with a grin. Celestia finally understands what he's doing as she clears a few threatening tears from her eyes. She lays her hoof gently into his hand as he wraps his fingers around it.
And I'm Princess Celestia, co-ruler of Equestria alongside my sister. However, you may call me Tia.
It's so odd to think about how small little moments like those could mean so much more than what's originally thought, though it's nice to reflect on when given the chance. Now let's get on to our super sweet donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Strix, Raiden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, Magazine, Crazy Killer 557, Nike Kruger, Dospo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Hedge, RuneScythe 9852, Hudson Norman, Stephen Bingham, Michael Dale Aramore, Dash of Evergreen, Ronnie Dragonwolf, Ponyman, Tall Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ron and Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Scouchia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Gets an A9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Needs a Life, Blonde Yehanek, JM, and many more very sweet people. Thank you all very much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.